the stories of Briscoe and Bradshaw. I would be Bradshaw. That would be your Chickasaw native, your Chickasaw Hall of Famer, Oklahoma's favorite son, Mr. Gerald Briscoe. And we have got the legend of all legends, one of the greatest NWA champions of all time. He and Luthez held the title for the record for most consecutive days in a row. Those two are ordered 1 and 2. Great Japanese champion, one of the greatest singles wrestlers of all time, one of the greatest tag team wrestlers of all time, one of the greatest coaches of all time, and most importantly, one of the greatest Texans of all time. He is Mr. Dory Funk. Dory, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so very much for that introduction. And I remember you were one of the great Texans of all time.
Well, thank you.
Don't let it go to his head, Dory.
Abilene, Texas.
Yes,
what a great
sir.
place to be from. I used to go there every week.
The only
time you said a key word there, a great place to be from.
Hey, Dory, one of the only times in my history where I walked through the airport and somebody said something to me, I'd see the same security guards every week, same CSA guys every single week, before 9/11 and all that, same people every single week. They always say hello to me no matter whether I was a heel or babyface. When I turned on your brother, Terry Funk, that was the only time that was the only time I walked through there, and a couple of guys stopped me and go, "That wasn't right." And then you could tell how mad they were. That's how big the Funk name is in Texas.
Yeah, John, that's right. Funk name is just synonymous with the state of Texas. The only other name that even rivals it or even comparison, because there's so many of them, was the Von Erichs. But there were so many world championships going through the Funk family there that there's no other Texas family that can compare it with a professional wrestler. But what an honor it is to finally sit down with Dory, with you, and discuss Dory's magnificent career. And let's go back a little bit, Dory, to your father, Dory Funk Jr., who was really a genius before his time in the state of Texas in professional wrestling. I think I shared with you. I know I did with Terry, but a couple of years back, and a wrestling coach from Hammond, Indiana, called me, and they were trying to name the high school or the wrestling room or the gymnasium. I'm sorry, I'll get it right. Or the gymnasium after your father. I don't know if I told them to contact you. I don't know if it ever got done up there, but what an honor it was. Tell us a little bit about your father. He was 3-time Indiana state champion, went to Indiana University, was a fantastic athlete there. Then how did he decide to get into professional wrestling?
I know that you guys are going to like my father because of his history. And I know you guys, I know your amateur wrestling background, and I know Jack's amateur wrestling background. And it's just a matter of pride and what we can do when we go in the ring. I tried hard to live up to everything my father expected, and I did do some amateur wrestling too, along with pro wrestling. I think it's absolutely necessary. In fact, I even went to and won the West Texas AAU championship. That's not like what your brother has done in the history of wrestling, but there is an amateur background to what I do. And some of my best matches ever were against the Briscoe brothers.
Yeah. Dory, tell us a little bit about your school. I mean, you were a football player at West Texas State University that spawned so many great professional wrestlers. I mean, the list is just more so than anybody can ever imagine. But we can go down the list: Dusty, Murdoch, Tully Blanchard, Manny Fernandez, your brother Terry, and so many more. Did I leave out any that you want to jump in and correct me with?
No, you didn't leave out any, but we've got some young wrestlers that I feel that there's going to be really some great pro wrestlers come out of this building.
Yeah. Well, tell us something. Tell us something too that that's been a rumor, and John and I have heard it from several different sources from West Texas. Was Dickie Murdoch actually a football player? I know he got to play in the alumni game, but did he actually get into the university there and play football for West Texas?
I was there the night he played in the alumni game. He just ran out on the field and did it, and it took a lot of guts because he really he was never attended West Texas University.
So the rumors are true. Dickie was never a
The rumors are
there,
true.
but he was such a likable guy. The coaches did not. I know you guys had Durko or whatever name, a crazy coach out there. So he just fit in with all the rest of Joe Kerbal.
Yeah, Joe Kerbal. I got to say, he was a great football coach.
Yeah.
I can't say anything bad about Joe Kerbal. He was terrific.
Now that's Murdoch. Let's cover Dusty Rhodes. Was Dusty a student there? I know he went to Sewell Ross Junior College or community college, but he always claimed West Texas University just to jump on that bandwagon there. He wasn't a student there either, was he?
No, I don't know that Dusty ever attended West Texas State University. A lot of people are reaching out and grab for notarization when they really didn't even bother to go to school there. You think that makes me feel good? I'd challenge Dusty right now if he were here.
And Dory, Bruiser Brody was there, but he was only there for a very short time. He got kicked out of school, right?
Yes, he did. I don't really remember the exact story of Bruiser Brody, but it was a very sad way he went through professional wrestling, and very sad ending.
Because Stan Hansen had told me that he met Brody on his recruiting trip, and then Brody, when he got there, was no longer there. Then he didn't see him again until he got to Dallas, and that's when he met him for the first time when he was wrestling, and Brody was then a sports writer, I guess, for the Dallas Morning News, right?
That's right. That's what he was. That's where he came from. You'd never guess it if you took a look at Bruiser Brody and how he looks, how tough he is, what he accomplished. I thought the world of Brody.
Yeah, Frank a good guy. I have a friend that wrestled against up in Iowa State University, Jim Dushin, that went to Iowa State until Frank got, he was roommates with Frank, and Frank got kicked out of school at Iowa State University for fighting. Imagine that. And he ended up in West Texas at that time. But Frank, what did you guys break Frank in, or did he go over to Dallas to get broken?
Break who?
Frank, Bruiser Brody.
He broke into business somewhere else. It wasn't Amarillo.
I think it was Dallas there. So tell us a little bit about the when you were you old enough to remember the move from Hammond, Indiana, down to Amarillo, Texas?
Sure, I was.
How old were you? And tell us a little bit about that.
It's the distance is like 1,100 miles. It was Route 66 all the way, and it was a long trip, but my father always drove fast, so he would make the trip.
That's where Terry got that from, huh?
That's where Terry got that from. Yeah, but my father would make the trip in 24 hours, so we were back and forth quite often between Chicago and Amarillo, Texas.
And when did your father set up the wrestling territory in Amarillo? Was that originally his, or did he get it from somebody else?
He purchased the wrestling territory in Amarillo from a man named Doc Sarpolis. I don't know if that rings a bell with anybody.
Yeah, I remember Doc.
Yeah, Doc Sarpolis was the owner of the Amarillo territory, and Doc got sick and had to quit the wrestling business. And with that, my father purchased it from Doc Sarpolis. And can you imagine a territory being bought for $10,000?
Wow.
It was wrestling territory.
$10,000.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you remember what made your dad want to make that transition from being an active competitor? Because I know he stayed an active competitor there for years, up until his death almost. But why he wanted to get into promotion, actually owning the territory?
He loved the wrestling business. From his amateur wrestling career in Hammond, Indiana, all the way through his last days as a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
He loved professional wrestling.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Well, I know something he stressed with you guys. You had to be an athlete and you had to graduate from college to become.
Those were both, yes.
Yeah.
2 requirements. They had to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. So you grew up. There was no wrestling.
I hate to say this, but my brother didn't make it. He didn't graduate from college.
Well, he played football though, right?
He played football, and when the season was over, he was in the ring wrestling.
So as the time moved along, you were a high school football player, and West Texas was known, and forgive me for saying this, but you'll probably agree, as an outlaw school, because we even heard of it up in Oklahoma, guys that couldn't get into Oklahoma State or Oklahoma University would always go down to West Texas State and play a couple of years at that outlaw school so they could get the grades up and come.
Wait a minute. Would you stop it?
Wait a minute.
Nobody ever left Oklahoma to come to... Stop it.
West Texas University was one of the best.
At what? At outlaws, right? It was an outlaw university. So you got to.
Who said that? Everything.
You got to. No. We're not leaving this. No. You're not saying that guys couldn't get in Oklahoma and came to Texas. It's the other way around.
They could.
No. The hell did you just try to slip by us?
Yeah, well, John, Dory, come on now. You guys were an outlaw school down there. That for all the people that don't know what an outlaw school, back in my day, they had these outlaw schools that their academics weren't quite up to Oklahoma standard, and if you couldn't make a grade, you slipped down to
all
West
I could do is hang my head.
So anyway, you got a scholarship there. You played football. You had some good seasons there. I mean, your team went on to play in the Sun Bowl, right? And played against Ohio University.
Ohio University and the Sun Bowl.
You can tell I've been reading this book, man.
We won the game 15-14.
Wow, what a close game.
And on that play, I was a lineman, but I took out 2 of the defensive players with 1 block.
Wow.
And got recognition for that from my coach, Joe Kerbal.
And that's how you do things in Texas, Mr. Briscoe.
Yeah, take out 2 for the price of
Oklahoma and standards. Those 2 words don't ever go together. It was a thrill. It was a thrill to me to be able to go up and play in a bowl game. There's nothing like it.
Well, Dory, did you ever have aspirations to play pro football? I know Stan Hansen went there, and Stan was wanting to play pro football, and thank goodness for wrestling. And I don't know about thank goodness. A bunch of us have stiff necks now because of lariats. But did you ever want to play pro football? I really didn't see playing pro football. The days that I was a wrestler, Mickey Mantle made $15,000. My first year in wrestling, professional wrestling, I made $20,000.
Huh.
And from that time on, there was no question wrestling was for me. Now it's changed. I grant you that it's changed now. Baseball players make a whole big bunch more money than they did that back then.
Well, as do football players, because of the stories about Wahoo and the great Ernie Ladd. They were playing pro football, and they during the off season they would go someplace and wrestle professionally, and they'd make more money during the summertime doing the
That's
pro
true.
wrestling bit, and then, so they both retired from football and came into the pro wrestling business. Correct?
That's true. My hasn't that changed?
Has it ever? I can't see that happening now where they're not making enough money. But and when you let's go to when you played the Sun Bowl, that was your last game in college football. You loaded up the truck. I think you guys had to drive your own cars back home from the bowl game or something like that, right?
No.
No, you had transportation at those schools too. Huh?
Would you stop?
Oh, yeah. No, we flew airplanes.
Oh yeah, they had airplanes back then. So Dory, so you got back.
How old do you think I am?
Oh, well, we'll get into that. So anyway, you got back from the Sun Bowl, and your dad. Okay, the gates open now. Go to your training.
He met me at the airplane, and I signed a contract on the steps of the returning aircraft.
Wow!
And became a professional wrestler right there.
Now you didn't sign with your dad. Your dad wasn't all the way promoter. It was his business partner at the time. That you signed with, right?
Yeah, my father was the guy I needed to sign with.
Yeah,
he was the boss.
Yeah, he was the boss at that time. Cool. So yes. you get into pro wrestling. Now I know being in a wrestling family that you learn this stuff. You learn the stuff in the ring at an early age because of your dad or whoever is a little bit older. You got it. So your dad had actually trained you. So did you? How long was the downtime from playing in that football game until you got in the ring for the first time?
A week or two, maybe a week.
Yeah. So who was your opponent? Do you remember your first opponent?
I don't think I can remember who was my first opponent. I can remember that Jerry Down Logan, an All-American football player from West Texas, was in my corner. And my opponent is hard to call. Yeah. I can't remember.
Well, you guys had such great talent at Amarillo territory at that time too, and all the Art Nelsons, the Nelson Rolls, and so many other great guys that you had there.
That's right.
So you're kind of learning in the ring. When did you bump into the great Lou Thez?
Oh boy, I wrestled Lou Thez. In 1963, I wrestled Lou Thez, and it was a 1 hour draw.
Wow.
And I got to give him credit. He was a fabulous wrestler.
And was that coming through Amarillo, or where was that match at?
That match was in Amarillo.
And he was coming through, and I guess he was the NWA champion at the time?
Yes, he was. But he was there at the favor of my father, Dory Funk Sr.
Was the championship on the line at the time?
Yes.
So
we wrestled for an hour.
Did you guys do anything to see who was going to be the contender for the NWA championship? Did you have a battle royal? Did you have a tournament or something? You're the one that was chosen, obviously, but was there a way to get to that storyline wise through the wrestling?
We did have a battle royal at one time, and I came out on top in the battle royal, and it got me another chance at the NWA World Championship, but on that occasion I didn't come through.
And you started there in Amarillo. When did you start going to Japan from that? Did you start right away? Did you go somewhere else first from Amarillo? When did you start going to Japan from Amarillo?
1969 was my first trip.
And then was that with Baba? All Japan, right?
That was with Inoki.
With Inoki. Now, was Inoki just starting up the company then, or was Inoki the boss at that point?
They were a legalized company in Japan. They were New Japan Pro Wrestling.
And describe a little
Baba
bit.
and Inoki were working for the same company.
That was before the split.
They split in 72. Yeah, that was before the split.
Was there just one company then in Japan?
No, there's always been two companies.
Right.
Or more.
And at that time, describe a little bit about Japan at that time. Was Inoki and Baba with the biggest company at the time? And was there another, obviously some competitors trying to compete with them that then Baba and Inoki split up? But describe a little bit about the Japanese at the time, the wrestling scene, please.
The wrestling scene in Japan, they had great wrestlers. They didn't have fighters cheat, hit people with chairs. They didn't do all that stuff. When you went to Japan, it was pure wrestling, very close to amateur wrestling.
And Japan became big for Americans to go to and made quite a bit of money. You guys made a lot of money. Stan made a lot of money.
The money was very good in Japan. It was like being world champion. The pay was the same.
Wow.
How many Americans were, like, say, over there on a tour? Were there quite a few, or did that come in later, or what was it?
All of the Americans didn't get paid the same. But on a tour of Japan, there could be four Americans.
Right.
But they weren't all pulling in money like former champions.
Right.
Dory, Japan, you and Giant Baba were real tight, and you guys had some classic matches over there. How did you find the Japanese audience, when you first went over? Because you had the heritage of an amateur wrestler, and Baba could for his size, he could wrestle a little bit. You guys had some classic matches over there. How were the crowds when you guys were in the ring?
You got to know the same thing when you give those people real wrestling. All of a sudden, they get with it, and a really good amateur wrestler can do some really great things as a pro wrestler. I know because I had quite a few wrestling matches with wrestlers named Briscoe.
Yeah,
fact,
I was going to bring that up there.
Yeah. I had my, if I were going to list my best wrestling matches that I had in my career, wrestling, they were against Jack Briscoe, Jerry Briscoe, Jack Briscoe, and Jerry Briscoe, and Jerry Briscoe and Jack Briscoe. So there's 10. Those were 10.
Yeah, we go back a long ways. I wanted to get into that a little bit, but do you recall the first time that Jack came down to Amarillo for TV right after he got out of Oklahoma State, right after winning a national title?
Yes, I do. I remember him coming in down there. Who did he wrestle?
I'm not sure. I think he wrestled Don Kent.
Very well could be.
Yeah.
Don't remember the match, but I remember the occasion.
Yeah.
And the importance of getting in touch with Jack Briscoe.
Yeah. Did your dad see the potential and Jack at the time and see dollar sign with you and brother Jack down the road there? He must have, because he.
Oh, yes, he did. Yes, he did. And my father loved amateur wrestling.
Right.
You mentioned it earlier. He was an amateur wrestler and went to Indiana University and had a terrific career himself.
Yeah.
He loved people that could wrestle.
Yeah. So that was one of Jack's first TV experiences out of the state of Oklahoma, and just out of irony, because your dad and Leroy had that exchange going along. A lot of people don't realize what the exchange the wrestlers were, but back in our day, with our beginning days, territories didn't carry a lot of talent, and you didn't want to beat the same guys every week on TV. So between Leroy and your dad, Leroy would send a carload of guys down to Amarillo for TVs, and vice versa. You guys would send a carload up to Oklahoma for TV also.
You got it. You got it. We had fresh TV shows too.
Yeah. You always had somebody fresh to get in the ring with and stuff like that.
And good talent though.
Yeah.
We didn't send cheap.
Yeah.
We didn't send cheap talent. They were good.
Yeah.
Good classic wrestlers.
Yeah. Jumping around a little bit here. When Jack came down, he spent a few weeks there, and before him or Terry were champion, I think they were working an angle with each other. And one day, Jack and Terry wrecked 3 cars. I've told John that. John, I don't think John believes me, but you can back that story up, correct?
They did 3 cars in one day.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Total wrecks.
How did they wreck 3 cars in one day?
Drinking.
No, not Terry and Jack.
One was Jack and 2 were Terry.
The way I remember, Jack got a rent-a-car first, and him and Terry were going down to Lubbock or somewhere down away from Amarillo, and they wrecked the rent-a-car right away. So Jack, what am I going to do, Terry? Well, I don't know. We're just
wait a minute, Jerry. Were they drinking that? How early were they drinking?
John, it was early.
They were on their way to Abilene.
Abilene, so it couldn't have been too early. How far a road trip is Abilene?
280 miles.
So it probably was early.
Yeah.
So anyway, they leave out of there, and Jack wrecks the rent-a-car. Jack's all fretting and everything. Terry telling Jack, don't worry about it.
Well, what did he wreck the rent-a-car into?
I don't know. They just wrecked it, and it gets bad. Yeah, it gets better though, and Dory will back me up on that. So Terry says, I'll just call my old man, a friend, and he'll run me over to my old man's house. We can pick up one of his cars, because I guess Dory had several cars laying around there. So they went and got one of Senior's cars. About Terry's driving now. So about 3 or 5, 10 miles down the road, another accident happened.
Another accident
happened. So that's 2 cars down. And Terry, don't worry, my dad's got a pickup truck. We can take that pickup truck.
They went and
got the pickup truck. They made it to Abilene. On the way back, they were coming back. Of course, a man's got to relieve himself every once in a while. So they pulled over the side of the road. Terry opened the door of the old man's pickup truck. They were standing there relieving themselves.
A car came by and took the door off.
A truck came by and took the door off and slid it like 1,000 feet down the road there, and it kept on going. So Terry and Jack drove back to Amarillo without a car door.
I think it was wintertime, wasn't it?
It was wintertime, too.
Dory, what did your dad say to him?
I can't say it on public television. I can't say it. My father came from a tough area of the country, and from a tough business, amateur wrestling, professional wrestling, and he was very explicit, especially if he got mad.
Yeah, especially if he wrecked 2 of his cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll do it.
And the great thing about it, Jack was leaving the next morning, so he didn't have to face Senior.
That's true. You're bringing back all the details to me.
Yeah. There were some wild times on those roads in West Texas, man. We had a ball down there. We had Scott Casey, who was one of your sergeants. He was Western States champion for a while down there.
You mean Scott Crazy?
Scott Crazy. You might know this story. He was with Wahoo. He was with Tom Jones, and he was with Mil Mascaras. and they were going somewhere out there in West Texas. They pulled over the side of the road. And they saw a UFO, according to Scott Crazy.
I got you.
And do you have any knowledge of that story?
I remember them coming back and telling the story of the UFO, but I can't place it in exactly how it went.
Well, you're like the rest of us. Yeah, sure you saw it, Eva.
I think they saw a falling star.
Yeah, it probably was. Out in that West Texas, I mean, the skies are bright out there. You can see for thousands of miles. It's actually
That's
beautiful
true.
country. It's actually beautiful country, contrary to popular belief about Texas. It's got
What do you mean
pretty
popular
country.
belief?
Well, John, I'm just telling the truth, my friend. So anyway, you can see forever. But were there any other sightings of UFOs out there, out in that part of the world?
You know, I never saw one. I saw.
Damn, you're on the road for 100 years out there too.
Oh yeah, but I never saw a falling star. I've seen some in pro wrestling. Falling star.
Yeah, well, a lot of them, brother. You're looking at
Yeah,
two right there.
A lot of them, brother.
Yeah.
So maybe Scott Casey was with Jerry, was with your brother and Terry before they wrecked the vehicles.
Yeah, it was. He probably was. I mean, they were all three running mates out there.
I think he was.
And you know, and the thing about it is, John, you know, kayfabe was really strict. Dory Sr. had a real strict kayfabe policy. And here's his son.
Kayfabe was strict.
Yeah, and a potential world champion going down, guys who was wrestling each other, going down the road together, you know, drinking, wrecking cars. So, you know, if the police wanted to make a big deal, I mean, Terry and Jack probably would have had to find other places to work the rest of the career.
It was very much a kayfabe situation back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, your dad taught Eddie Graham so much of what he knows to become a promoter. The Cal Farley Boys race. Eddie came down here, the Florida Sheriff's Boys race. The promotion of amateur wrestling that your dad was involved in. Eddie Graham did the same thing. Eddie Graham, I think your dad and Eddie one night was out on the road having a few, and your dad gave him a blueprint, and Eddie got back to Florida and just about copied that blueprint to the T. Am I correct on that, Dory?
You are absolutely. Well, Eddie Graham spent some time in the Amarillo territory. It wasn't like just a week, but it was several months.
And he was Rip Rogers then, right?
He was Rip Rogers.
Wow.
That's a better name than Eddie Graham.
Yeah. 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 Do you remember any of those times when Eddie was out there? Was he a crazy man, or was Eddie pretty in tune to what was going on in the business and really a student of the game?
I remember when he was flying an airplane, and we were coming back from a town back home to Amarillo, and you got to a certain place and there was some rain out there, so he wanted to go around the clouds. He turned left while we were going north in the state of Florida and flew out over the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh, that's when you guys were coming back from Fort Myers, Florida, right? And
that's what it was, Fort Myers, Florida.
Fort Myers, Florida. Yeah, I remember that story. Yeah,
He turned left. We went out over the ocean, and there was no going back.
Now, Eddie hadn't been drinking at that time, had he?
Yes, he had.
Yes, he had. I'm glad you're backing these up, because I've told these stories of Layfield, and he just don't seem to believe me that Eddie.
No, I believe you. I just don't understand why you would consistently get into an airplane with a person that's drunk.
He was a good pilot.
I can't give you an answer to that.
But the good thing about Dory, you knew you had your pilot's license there, so
I had my pilot's license, but I was sitting in the back seat, and there was nothing I could do.
So how long did you go over the Gulf?
Except talk my way out of it. And as we were going west out of the state of Florida over the Gulf, I told Eddie, I screamed at him. I said, "You got to turn this thing around and go back to Florida." When I said that, I don't know why, but the Lord was looking after us. He made a right-hand turn, flew all the way back into Florida to the Tampa International Airport, landed the airplane perfect, and we all got out safe. Very
Wow.
unusual.
Yeah, well, you know as well as I do. I mean, there were so many occasions that I was a part of them. Like John said, I repeatedly went back and got on the airplane. You know, you probably heard the story where he tried to land in that shopping center parking lot. You know, that's a couple of miles before the runway there at Tampa International. Do you remember that story?
Yeah.
He did that, and then a couple others. I mean, he used to crank that old stereo up and listen to Merle Haggard.
Merle Haggard and the stereo.
Yeah.
You
When he was
couldn't talk to Eddie.
you couldn't talk to Eddie.
When he was flying an airplane, you couldn't talk to him.
Yeah. And you know, if the law was after Eddie, they pulled him up. Eddie would land that airplane. He always had just off of fresh juice. He'd pop his head with his fist and tell the cops, you know, he got hit over the head by Pac Song or Dory Funk or something like that, and he had a little blackout. The reason he had that problem. And Eddie was so well respected here in town. They said, "All right, Eddie, just drive, get home, and be safe." You know.
That's true. It was Eddie gave a lot to the wrestling business.
He certainly did, and the community here. I mean, with all his deals, he started. Like I said, he started at youth range for amateur wrestling, and then he started.
He gave a lot to the real wrestlers.
Yeah, he did, and that was a passion. That was a passion of Eddie's, and I think that passion grew from his relationship with your dad.
I have to say yes. I think that was a big part of Eddie Graham's personality.
Yeah. So Dory, talk us through. You know, when there's talk about giving Dory Funk Jr. the World Heavyweight Championship. Take us through that process. A lot of people don't know. They know, well, there's an NWA and they had a meeting and they voted, but who were some of the cast and characters there? Who was behind you, pushing you and wanting you to be the champion?
Dory Funk Jr.
Dory Funk Jr. Was Eddie and Vern or Bob Geigel? They were also on your dad's side, right?
They helped me extensively in pro wrestling. I can't thank them enough.
I know Bob Geigel. He was an amateur wrestler also. So him and your dad would come up during the same time there. He got into promotion, then your dad got into promotion. So they had that tight amateur bond and that professional bond later on, where they were really tight friends.
Yeah, but it's a great business. If I walk in the ring with the Briscoe brothers, there's going to be some real wrestling there.
For sure. So tell us a little bit about when your dad was pushing you to the committee. You know, I want my son to be world champion. He's done the training. He's got the background. He's an athlete. He's a college graduate. He's young. He can go forever. Tell us a little bit about that.
He didn't have to say that. Everybody wanted me.
He didn't have to say it. Because had you already made the rounds as they used to do? You know,
I had worked the territories. Yes.
Yeah. Because a lot of times before NWA would make a champion,
they paid a lot better when I was champion.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet they did. But when the NWA was doing the road for the championship, the guy that was in line for it would go all across the nation, putting the local stars over, so when they came back, they would have a built-in program with the local wrestlers. Correct?
I don't know any local wrestlers that could stay with me.
Well, the Briscoes stayed with you a few times.
Oh, the Briscoes! Yeah, the Briscoes did it.
So anyway, you get to pitch. How were you informed, Dory, we're going to go with you?
How was I what?
Informed, you know, that you're getting a nod.
The referee went 1, 2, 3, and I knew it was going to happen.
You know, Dory, that's the Jack says in his book, and I'm sure you've looked across it. Jack said in his book, that was the greatest night in his career. And everybody, why, Jack? You won the title. Why was Dory winning being the greatest night in his career? And Jack said, because a guy like Dory Funk has the same background as I do. It opened my eyes to know that a guy like me can win that title.
That's right. That's right. And he certainly deserved it too.
That was in Tampa, Florida against the great Gene Kaniski. Correct. Where you won it, right?
That's a hell of an accomplishment against Gene Kaniski.
Gene was one of those great athletes, one of those big raw bone Northwestern type guys, one of those big lumberjack looking guys. Man, what an impressive champion he was. They went from he was a pro football player too. They went from this big bang up brawler to an athletic young college guy who looked the part and who once he was in the ring could do the part. And you went around and you and Jack just automatically just hit it off for some reason. I think it was because of both of you guys' great athletic ability. But when did you know that you had a dancing partner in Jack Briscoe that you could go all around the world with?
I think after my first championship match with him. Yeah. You know, there was a period of time when I was champion that and I've looked back at my records, that I didn't work a lot with Jack Briscoe. Mm-hmm. But when the fans and the promoters saw what we could give them for a championship wrestling match, all of a sudden I look in my history books and it says Jack Briscoe, Jack Briscoe, Jack Briscoe.
Well, I'm gonna fill
Jerry Briscoe.
And Jerry,
Jack Briscoe and Jerry Briscoe.
Yeah, Jerry. I'm gonna fill the fans in on how that came about, because back in, as everybody knows, in the NWA, we had our own little territories, and each one of those territories were protected by TV rights, where the NWA members would not infringe on another guy's area because of TV. But Eddie had the foresight to know this magic, and remember, he syndicated it out. I think it was like 40 or 50 different cities across the United States where NWA was really hot, and he put that 60-minute Broadway draw that you guys had in Bayfront Center. That thing went basically all over the world. That kind of set that rivalry up to any place you guys wanted to go. Correct?
It was any place we went, Jack Briscoe and myself, it was going to be a huge crowd.
And Jerry, was that one of the first national syndicated matches that the way it was?
I'm Dory.
The what?
I'm Dory.
No. Yeah. I'm sorry. I was asking. I was asking. I didn't say Terry. I said Jerry. I was asking Jerry.
Oh, you said Jerry. Okay.
No. I
thought you said Terry.
No.
Turn your hearing aid up, Funk.
No, I was asking Jerry a question on that, and no, me and Terry almost got in a fight one time at 5 o'clock in the morning at a gas station because I topped off the rent-a-car, and he got mad because it was like 30 extra cents, and he goes, "Kid, that's how you go broke." And I'm like, literally, we almost got into a fight. I really don't want to fight Terry Funk at 5 o'clock in the morning at a gas station. So I love Terry. Terry was such a good guy. I got to tag with Terry in WWE. It was just one of the thrills of my life to get to tag with one of the Funk brothers. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much, and I'll relay that information to my brother.
What I was going to ask Mr. Briscoe was that one of the first matches you say it was basically syndicated, that 60-minute Broadway that they did at the Bayfront? So they sent it to all the different territories, and so that was one of the first nationally kind of syndicated matches, right?
As far as I know, that wasn't on national TV. Of course, we've talked about the national TV with Barnett and the guys up in Chicago before, but that was long afterwards. But I think Eddie was powerful in the NWA along with Dory Sr., and I think together they worked all the territories in the country, and they had to buy that hour. That's how professional wrestling was back in those days. But all of NWA purchased that hour, and I think it was like 40 or 50 markets. I'm not sure the number of markets, but somewhere around along that area. But yeah, John, that was one of the first syndications that was used to build a program with that in that era of the business.
You know, Dory, it must be amazing you have one of the greatest rivalries ever in the history of wrestling with Jack Briscoe. And also when you talk about tag teams, you talk about the great brother tag teams, later came along the Steiners and, Harlem Heat, some great brother teams came along. But you guys were really the first. You had two of the greatest rivalries in singles and in tag team matches, all with people named Briscoe. That had to be pretty cool.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm saying that had to be a pretty unique thing to have. Here you got your opponent, Jack Briscoe and Jerry, but then also you and your brother Terry have got this great brother on brother tag team match also going all around the loop. That had to be a lot of fun, or it had to be like, oh my God, we got the Briscoes again.
It was never said. Those words were never heard. Never ever. I was always thrilled to have the Briscoes, either as a single or as a tag team match. It's always a thrill to walk in the ring with. You're going to come out of there really impressing the fans.
Yeah. Oh, Dory, I know I had my first championship match where I went to the world title was against you in Charlotte, North Carolina, back when I was just a rookie, and you just become champion there. And I remember Jim Crockett Sr. coming to me. He said, "Kid, I'm gonna put you with the champion, and you guys are gonna go Broadway." And I started freaking out because I'd never gone longer than 45 minutes in my life. But I remember talking to you that night, Dory. I'm scared to death. Dory, I'm scared to death. You just said the old basic said, "Kid, just don't relax and listen to me, and we'll get through it." And I never will forget that night, man. And that was the beginning of
Did I ever call you kid?
Did you have what?
Did I ever call you kid?
I think you did. At that night when you were champion, you did, I think. So anyway, but Dory, what do you think made those matches so special? Number one, the matches with you and Jack are just, to this day, they're learning tools today. I mean, they're teaching tools. You go over WWE Performance Center up there, and you talk about it. That's one of the matches that they want the kids to research and watch over and over again because the matches were just such quality. Why do you? And then second of all, the tag teams, which are hard to do at times, and John knows this. When you got four guys out there on their own agenda, but nobody was on their own agenda. Why do you think those tag teams and single matches with the Funks and Briscoe work so well?
Well, so many people don't realize this, but we're in a giving business. And so many wrestlers, even I go and watch on TV today, they go out in the ring and what can I do to make myself look good? What can I do? How can I be good myself? What can I do for me? It's not what can you do for me? It's what can I do for you? That's the story of the business.
Mm. So the way I try to explain, we had four guys out there that when we got in the ring together, we had no fear that we were going to get your shit in, as the guys say today. We had no fear of that.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, and we had that's what I related to today. But we had four guys out there that had, when they were against each other, had no egos inside that ring with each other because we knew each other. If we gave a lot, we were going to get a lot. And I think you guys had the same opinion of us. You guys knew you could go out there and do your best and work a match exactly how you want, but you knew you were going to get everything back in the end too.
Oh, absolutely. That's the story of wrestling, but that's also the story of life. You get back what you give.
And Dory, you had the title for so long. I mean, for one, it had
Yeah.
to wear on you, didn't it? I mean, when you finally ended up losing the title, was it almost a relief at that point that, like, okay, I've done it, thank goodness, because that
No, it was the whole trip as world champion was an absolute thrilling pleasure. To go to the places I went, to have the opportunity to give something to my opponents, my promoters, the wrestling fans. That's what wrestling is really about. And until you can really understand that, it's a rough business to break into.
Yeah. When you finally gave it up, did you know the time was right for you, or do you think you could have gone a couple more years, or were you just ready after that grueling schedule? And he explained to some of our fans out there what that schedule was like. How many nights a year were you guys actually on the road?
I was on the road probably 300 days a year. And
Wow.
it was a very rough thing to do and very difficult for my family. And in the end, I gave up things because I wanted to be with my family, see my kids, play with my kids, do a lot of things with them to make them happy. And it wasn't there in the wrestling business with me gone across the country 300 days out of the year. That just didn't work. And it proved true.
Yeah.
I did get hurt.
And Dory,
I did get divorced. What?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize.
It did. It cost me my first marriage. There's no question. I was gone all the time.
And a lot of people don't look at the 300 nights a year, and a lot of people did 300 nights a year, but your 300 nights a year were different than everybody else on the card, because you had to close the show, and you had to wrestle an hour, or you had to wrestle half an hour at least. You had to, if the crowd was hot, you had to keep them hot. If the crowd was bad, you had to leave them happy. There was so much pressure on you. It's completely different from everybody else on the card when you're closing the show. But the pressure of being 300 nights a year on the road in main events is a complete different pressure, right? From being
it was all my pleasure to be where I was, doing the things that I did. My part in the wrestling business, I am totally thrilled with.
And did you ever get to the point where you just think, I can follow anybody? I mean, I'm just curious, because when you look at the great talent, they may not always say it, but guys like you, Dory, guys like Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, guys like Jack Briscoe, Jerry Briscoe, your brother, they know they can follow pretty much anybody. At that point in your career, were you just thinking, I don't care what's ahead of me, I'm going to close it, I'm going to leave them all standing on their feet? Did you ever think that deep inside?
Yeah, I do right now. I can follow anybody.
Well, I think to be such a great champion like you were, that had to be part of your attitude. I know it.
That's the point of this interview. That's the point of this interview. I can follow anybody.
There's a new book right there.
Oh yeah, new book.
Yeah, I can follow anybody.
And like Jerry Lee Lewis said, you want to follow the killer, you better get a pine box.
Dory, I know you back in our day, we watched all the matches before our match was supposed to go on, and you'd see a match right before yours, and you kind of hoped it was good because the crowd was there, so you could just take that crowd to a different level that the match that left it before didn't think they could get it to, and then you go out there with your opponent, and then you bust it to a different level there. And that's one of the, and John will back that. That's one of the best feelings we have in our business, when you just feel those crowds you've took it to a different level.
You and your brother both could do that, and there's not many people even right now that can do that.
Yeah, but we had magic dancing partners, and You know, out of all the matches, I know it'd be hard to pick your favorite, but you and Jack had so many. I know I was.
Oh, me and Jack had we had a fabulous time.
Yeah, I went to a few of them in Japan, and like you say, the people out there, you know, you'd watch the cards and watch the build up to it. And John knows that the Japanese audience is so astute; they don't get riled up over anything. But you and Jack would go out there and you'd start your maneuvers and you're out right. But you're right, when you do a good wrestling move over Japan, the boom, you get that pop that you're looking for, and you can sustain it by continuing the chain wrestling that you and Jack were able to do.
When you get them, you've got them in Japan.
Sure.
Really do.
Dory, the timeline, was it the part of the timeline for when you lost the championship, pass it on to Harley Race? The wreck that you had, was that part of the reason for that? You had the terrible wreck that was during that time period. Did that have something to do with the championship ended up being lost?
The wreck was a wreck. Had nothing to do with the championship.
Had nothing. I didn't know if from that you had some injuries or anything.
You knew ahead of time that's what your answer was going to be. The wreck was a wreck.
Well, no, that's why I asked. I going through your timeline of the history of your matches and the wreck, and I didn't really know if that had anything to do with it and had any part of the injuries or being able to defend the championship. How bad? Because I really don't know, Dory. How bad was the wreck as far as physically? Was there much problems that came from it?
Yeah, my head was 16 stitches, something like that. Busted my knee up. Today my knee still bothers me. Busted it. Yeah, the wreck took its toll. It also forced back in the ring early. Loss of the world championship. The wreck was real.
Yeah, take us through that too. You lost. Where were you? Up in Kansas City? Was it Kansas City or was it one of their other towns?
It was one of their other towns. I don't remember. Yeah.
And you lost to Hardy there. Was there some controversy that you feel happened there? Because our business has been filled with screw jobs throughout the history of it. You know, we go back to Gorgeous Door, to Don Eagle. You can call it a couple other. But was there some controversy when Harley took the title from you that night?
Nothing other than that I was forced back into the ring.
Yeah.
Early.
Okay, tell me this now. Why was the decision made to go with Harley instead of my brother Jack? It's basically what I'm getting at. Because when you went up to work with
100%,
when you went up to
Jack, 100%. So
when you went up to work, when you went to work with Harley and dropped the title, that originated because you were scheduled a few months earlier to drop it, so that schedule actually was translated over to Jack, so that probably was Jack's shot there. Don't you agree, or what? Am I wrong on assuming that?
I can't stay up with you.
Okay. Okay. Well, the thing is,
Jack or Jerry are in the ring, fans are going to see a wrestling match.
Yeah.
If anybody like Jack and Jerry are in the ring with me, they're going to see a wrestling match.
Yeah.
We're going to get it done, and we're going to get it to them.
Yeah.
And the fans, each and every one, are going to believe what they see at the time they see it.
Yeah.
At the time they see it.
Yeah.
That's you guys.
Yeah, John. Is John still with us?
Yeah, I'm right here, Jerry. I was letting you finish your line of thought on the championship match. I guess the championship that was, I guess what Jerry was questioning was it was.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
JBL, are you there?
Yes, sir. Right here. Yes, sir.
my wife just whispered in my ear, she wants you to give us some stock tips. And wants to know your feelings on WWE stock.
I tell you what, that's the best merger I've ever seen. It is unbelievable what Vince McMahon did and WWE did with the merger with Endeavor and UFC. I think it creates this incredible global company that has so many synergies, from cable contracts to social media overlaps to so many different things, to characters that can migrate between shows, WWE shows and UFC's combat shows. I think it's tremendous what they've done. I'm blown away by how good that merger at least looks on paper. Things can look good on paper and not always come to fruition in real life, but to me, it just seems like it's a terrific merger, and I've never seen the business looking better. I mean, these guys are filling massive arenas. It's unbelievable what they're doing. Do you like it, Dory?
I love it. My wife Marty is jumping up and down. She's thrilled to hear what you do. She's in hysterics.
John, how long? Go ahead, Marty.
Go ahead, Marty.
We've made money. I'm thrilled.
Okay, great. How long does it take, John, for the?
We'd like to invite any investor out there, buy WWE stock.
Yeah, for sure. How long, John, does it take for this merger, the process of it to go through where it's official?
Probably 6 to 9 months. And even from now, it's going to take a while. You got a million lawyers, you got a million things you got to, they agreed, first on a handshake before they got an MOU, then they got a binding MOU, then they've got, more, set it into a contract. So it's just, this stuff just takes a long time. This is a 22 or $23 billion company. So this is one of the biggest companies in the world now. I know there's, you got Apple at 3 trillion, but there aren't many billion-dollar companies, and now $23 billion company. It's just an amazing story that Vince bought this company from his father for $1 million in 1981, and it just got valued at $9.3 billion before this merger. Now the combined merger is $22 billion. I mean, it's just unheard of. When we back in the sportatorium, you had your sportatorium in Florida, we had ours down in Texas. When you had that old nasty building, it's hard to believe that now that business that you're part of is at least just one company is now the $22 billion conglomerate. It's amazing what's happened to this business. Don't you think the same thing, Jerry? I mean, as far as
I certainly do. I mean, we all three of us seen this business grow. I mean, from just a little backyard studio wrestling now, where they set up a 20,000 seat arena to be the studio for wrestling, which that's totally amazing to me. When Dory and I we wrestled, and you did too, at the Sportatorium, we wrestled in front of crowds 30 to 50 people for TV, and made it work. But nowadays, they're like you say, they're selling out arenas coast to coast and nation to nation. But, I'd like to ask Dory another question. You mentioned in the intro the trainer. A lot of times Dory gets overlooked for being such a great trainer. I mean, you look at WWE annals. I mean, there's Kurt Angle and several other guys. Tell us a little bit, Dory, who all did you have the pleasure of training? And let's start with Kurt Angle. What did you see in Kurt Angle when you saw him coming out?
I saw what every wrestling fan wants to see. Every wrestling fan, when they're sitting ringside, they want to believe what they're looking at. And Kurt Angle was a great, to start with, amateur wrestler, but also he was a great professional wrestler. And Kurt Angle could give the people realism, and he could give the people entertainment. And he did it, and he did a hell of a job of it. And everything that Kurt Angle got out of the wrestling business, he certainly deserved.
Yeah. Kurt used to tell me all the time when I first was on the road with him that
you compared him with Brother Jack all the time, and then saw that.
I did, yes. Yes, he and Jack.
Who were some of the other guys that you?
Jack Briscoe and Kurt Angle were for real. Yeah, they really were for real.
Yeah.
So you could get with them.
Yeah. Who were some of the other guys that you were training at that time, Dory?
Who else was I we training at that time? Or at any time? Edge.
Wow.
Lita came later.
Lita. Who besides Lita?
Well, so far, Dory, you've only mentioned 3 Hall of Famers, so that's a pretty good record there that you've got.
They were really good talent, and did a fabulous job for us, and still do.
And a really good trainer.
And a really good trainer, exactly.
Thank you.
And then speaking of trainers, I know where the folks find you now, and you're still training, and I hope you don't mind. You're in your 80s, early 80s, and you're still out there training with these guys, which I find is just amazing and fantastic. But knowing you, like I know you, I know there's no end in sight. Tell us a little bit about the Funking Conservatory up in Ocala.
Well, I got to keep their respect when they go in the ring. So what I teach them gets back to amateur wrestling. And I start there. They have to start there. Then we bring it forward. And as we go, amateur wrestling moves, then workable pro wrestling moves, such as a wrist lock, a hammerlock, a crossface, top body scissors, and stretch them. And then we get into working a wrestling match. How's it going to work? How are we going to put it together? And all of this is entertaining the wrestling fans. It's all done for the wrestling fans. Did that explain it?
Yeah. How many students do you have up there on an average that you go through?
12, 13.
Good.
14.
So the classes are just the right size where they all receive, and I've watched you teach up there. They all receive that personalized training.
Yeah, they all receive a personalized
that a good trainer gives them. Yeah, you don't exclude anybody. The young ladies that are up there, you've had some tremendous young ladies up there, and you've trained. But are you still very active in that now?
Sure.
How do the folks find how do the folks find you, Dory, on this? Bang Wrestling, correct?
Bang Wrestling, yes. Bang TV,
okay.
Professional
Bang TV.
Wrestling.
Okay, they can go on Google, and how do they find it on Google? Just type in Bang TV Wrestling.
Just type in Dory Funk Wrestling. What else?
That'll do it.
That'll get it. Dory Funk Wrestling.
Okay.
That'll get them their information.
Well, Dory, I want to tell you, I didn't want to tell you at the very beginning because I didn't want to come across as just a complete fanboy or mark, but one of my youngest memories in my life, I adored my grandfather. I loved my grandfather. We used to watch wrestling together, and we were at the crossroads there in Sweetwater, Texas, right outside of Abilene, where we got a little bit of the Amarillo television and a little bit of the world-class television of Fritz. And so me and my grandfather spent every Sunday talking about either the Funk brothers or Fritz Von Erich, before the kids debuted, before Kevin came in first and David and Carrie and all that stuff. So you and your brother are one of the main reasons that of great memories that I have with my grandfather, and one of the main reasons I got into the business, because I love the fact that Fritz Von Erich and the boys were Texan, and the Funk brothers were just reeked of Texas. It was so cool to me to grow up watching you guys, and you guys were such a big influence. And then I got to meet you, and they say don't meet your idols. I completely disagree. I met my idols and it blew away any expectations that I had of greatness. You were so much better in person after meeting you, and your brother Terry. I got to tag with Terry. So I want to thank you for all those years and for being the man that you are. It's a pleasure to me to be able to know you.
My wife said we need to give you a hug. If you were here, I'd be hugging you.
Well,
You guys are
Dory,
so good.
the same goes for me. I mean, we've had the pleasure of knowing you since I got in the business, basically. But you know, we've traveled the world together, and we've had some memorable matches that I'll never forget. And some of the most prideful nights in my life was standing in a corner, looking across and seeing a Funk, and mostly Dory Funk Jr. in that corner, and knowing that I'm gonna be taken care of in that ring. So, you know, bless you, man, and keep. I know you got a training class coming up here, so we won't keep you much longer. But Dory, if promoters that do these card shows, if you like doing them, do you want to tell promoters how to get you on some of these great memorabilia shows?
Thank you so very much, and I want to give you both a hug.
Hey, well, thank you, Dory, and we'll promote the heck out of your book. And I can't tell you what an honor it was to have you on with me and Mr. Briscoe. It's been a wonderful afternoon.
John, the name of the book is "Last of a Great Breed," and man, how true is that title there? What a great title it is, because Dory, you're truly the last of a great breed, a breed that came along in the 60s, man, and you just tore it up and got so much to be proud of, and it's always been an honor to work with you. But most of all, it's been an honor for all these years to stay a good friend with Dory Funk Jr. Thanks so much, Dory, for being on the show.
Thank you guys so very much, and I appreciate so much the opportunity to be on your television show. This is just terrific. Thank you, thank you, thank you.